Hello, BookTube. Sorry to have missed videos yesterday. I got a lot of concerned messages from a lot of you. The reason was not the coronavirus. It was just the day, that's all. It was just the day that I had. But the mail continues. We missed yesterday's mail. A pile of packages, but that's okay. There will be other packages. We have a pile of packages today. The mail goes on, despite the fact that that two key events happened at the same time yesterday that finally broke through the American complacency about this pandemic. Two things that are pretty much two of the only things that could do it. The NBA canceled their season, and Tom Hanks became sick with this disease, with this virus. I guess the same thing might have happened if the baseball season were canceled, but those are close enough. And for them to happen together, all of a sudden, 250 million people who had been completely ignoring this or saying, it's just the flu. The president told me so. Suddenly went, oh, wait a minute, this might be real. And if this is real, well, I don't have anything that I need. I need to go out and mindlessly hoard right away. But the mail continues. So let's look at the mail and see what we can find. See if there's anything squeal-worthy in here. Let's see. Oh, this first one is from Tor. Very nice. I like hearing from Tor. They are the premier science fiction publisher in the English language, but I don't get as much of their stuff as I would like, and I'd like to change that, of course. So this is from the Forge imprint, and this is by Matt Goldman, and it's called Dead West. It's got a blurb by Harlan Coben on the cover, so maybe this isn't science fiction at all. I am thrilled to once again be working with the New York Times bestselling and Emmy Award-winning author Matt Goldman on his latest novel. Let's see here. Niles Shapiro accepts what appears to be an easy, lucrative job. Find out if Beverly Mayer's grandson is foolishly throwing away his trust fund in Hollywood, especially now, in the wake of his fiancée's tragic death. This easy job becomes much more complicated once Niles arrives in Los Angeles, a disorienting place where the sunshine hides dark secrets, and he comes to believe that Eben Mayer's fiancée was murdered. What's more, Eben himself may have been the target. As Niles moves into Eben's inner circle, he discovers that everyone in Eben's professional life, his agent, manager, screenwriter, and producer, seem to have dubious motives at best. I wonder if they all have freaky names. I guess we'll find out, won't we? Eben, E-B-B-E-N. Niles, N-I-L-S. Okay. Not Eric, not Nick. Let's see. When Niles' friend Jameson White, so not James, Jameson, who I know that authors have to live with these names for endless hours during the first draft and the second draft and the third draft, but that isn't any reason to call your character Coney Island Shapiro. That isn't any reason to do that. You should just suck it up. You can call them anything you want in the first and second draft, but when the book comes out, they should have normal person names. Let's see here. This book is full of twisty red herrings and sparkling with sardonic wit. It's an entertaining joyride of a mystery. Drawing on Matt Goldman's more than 30 years working in the entertainment industry as a television writer, the novel offers an inside look into the darker sides of Hollywood and keeps readers guessing till the final chapter. Fantastic. Okay, well, so it's not science fiction, but that doesn't matter. It sounds fascinating. Just a classic Hollywood noir, by the sound of it. So who's the author? He's a playwright and Emmy Award-winning television writer for Seinfeld, Ellen, and other shows. He brings his signature storytelling abilities and light touch to the Niles Shapiro series, which started with his debut novel, Gone to Dust. So this is not the first one. Goldman has been nominated for the Seamus and Nero Wolfe Awards and is a Lariat Award winner. He lives in Minnesota, God help him. He lives in Minnesota with his wife, 2 dogs, 2 cats, and whichever children happen to be around. Okay. All right. Well, he's got to do something to take his mind off the misery, doesn't he? I mean, it's almost mid-March here in the United States, which means that most of the country, when they're not worrying about a pandemic, is starting guardedly to look forward to spring and even summer. But Minnesota still has 4 months of winter to go. All right, great. Let's move on to this next one here. So the first one is from Forge, and it's an LA noir. That's interesting. Oh my, what is this? Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, all right, this is August. This is an August book, which is the 1 month of summer that Minnesota gets. so they have that to look forward to. This is not, I did not know this was coming. This is by Edward Melillo, and it is called The Butterfly Effect, Inside the Insects and the Making of the Modern World. I don't have a pub sheet for this, but you can gaze on the artwork. Insects might make us recoil in repugnance. They don't actually do that, right? They make us recoil in repulsion, not repugnance. Repugnance is their quality, not ours. But sorry. But they also manufacture or make possible in other ways many of the things we take for granted in our daily lives. When we bite into a shiny apple, listen to the resonant notes of a violin, try on the latest fashions, receive a dental implant, or get a manicure, we are mingling with the byproducts of their everyday lives. Try as we might to replicate their raw materials, silk, shellac, cochineal, for instance. Our artificial substances have proven subpar at best and at worst toxic, ensuring our interdependence on the insect world for the foreseeable future. But the insect world isn't going to be there for the foreseeable future. I wonder if this book will tackle that. With illuminating demonstrations and rich narratives and drawing on research in laboratory science, agricultural practices, fashion, and international cuisine, the author weaves a vibrant world history that shows humans and insects as inextricably intertwined. He makes clear that, across time, humans have not only coexisted with these creatures, but have relied on them for, among other things, the key discoveries of modern medical science and the future of the world's food supply. Okay, so those of you who hate bugs, you have an awakening in store, because this book is all about how you couldn't live without them. Fantastic. Okay. All right. Let's see what this next one is. Let's see what we have here. Still no pup sheet. Oh, right. Okay, here it is. Good. This is sumptuous historical fiction. For those of you who like sumptuous historical fiction, this is coming right up. You can just request it at your library or buy it at your bookstore. I am forbidden to merely suggest requesting it at your library, because apparently some of you are rolling in moolah. I actually can't deny that, considering how generous you all are in calling in store credit at the Brattle. This is by Karen Tanabe, and it is 100 Suns, sorry. This is one half of the story begins with Jessie Lesage, the American wife of a Michelin heir, who journeys to Indochine in the name of the family fortune. At first, she is charmed by the exotic colony, touched by the fascinating expatriates she meets, and firmly believes she and her husband will succeed in stamping out the continued communist uprisings that plague their vast rubber plantations. But as the heat and champagne catch up with her, Jessie begins to question her place in Indochine, her complicity in the Michelin family's murky dealings, and who, if anyone, she can trust in this utterly foreign land. Doesn't that sound good? Ordinarily, I would object to such a sepia tone cover to what is obviously going to be a vibrant and colorful novel, but I kind of like this, kind of graceful. So who is the author? Karen Tanabe is the author of 4 novels, including The Gilded Years, which is soon to be a motion picture starring Zendaya. She's a former Politico reporter. Her writing has also appeared in the Washington Post, the Miami Herald, the Chicago Tribune, and Newsday. She's made frequent appearances as a celebrity and politics expert on Entertainment Tonight, CNN, and the CBS Early Show. Okay, so this comes out in early April, right around the corner, and it's a big, generous sounding historical fiction. So if that's your jam, as the kids say, and of course, why wouldn't it be? Then you know you've got one coming up. All right, let's see this next one. Oh, great! Oh, fantastic! Okay, this is I requested this. This is something that I champion on this channel. I love debut novels. Absolutely love them. I think they're just the bee's knees. And this is one of them. This is a debut novel. What have we got here? Look at all this stuff. Look at all this stuff. I don't need any of that. All right. So this comes out at the very end of the month. This comes out on the last day of March. This is a debut novel by Elizabeth Wetmore called Valentine. Very pretty cover. This takes readers to the little explored literary territory of the unforgiving realities of life in West Texas oil town, as refracted through the inner and outer lives of a group of complex, often conflicted women. Little explored. The Texas oil world is little explored in literature? Is little explored in fiction? Okay. Through 7 disparate and distinct voices, crossing 3 generations, the at once fiercely honest and achingly lyrical narrative traces the chain link of responses after a brutal sexual assault upends a patriarchal community. Wetmore, who grew up in the region, deftly and sympathetically captures the specifics and nuances of the time, place, and character, while she paints a timeless portrait of the foundations of women's lives: friendship, devotion, and the frustrating impossibility of finding opportunity or justice in a man's world. Okay, so this is a debut novel. Looks like it opens in the 1970s. And it comes out at the very end of the month. And I always worry about debut novels, because they are the recipients of their writers' whole heart and soul. And yet, quite a few big venues won't risk a review of a debut novel when they've got so many established talents that they want to write about. And that does a disservice. I mean, debut novels can get their reviews elsewhere, of course. There's Goodreads, there's Amazon, there's a ton of other places. But I like the big venues who have a regular feature devoted to debut fiction. That always pleases me. Let's see here. Let's see. This next one is not coming along quietly. Of course, it's partially the package's fault. It's partially Steve's fault. It's not my fault, but I have abysmal sense of touch. so fine work. No, this just doesn't want to open. Okay, I don't know if I don't know if I'm going to destroy the book if I rip the package open. But let's see. Oh well, no, I didn't destroy the book, and I'm glad I didn't. Great. We've seen these before many times on this channel, and I'm always happy to see them. This is Georges Simenon. This is a Maigret novel. Penguin is doing all of these in new translations. The whole vast shelf of them, the whole enormous collection of them in these pretty white spine trade paperbacks. This is Maigret's childhood friend. They're all beautifully designed, and they have new translations. This one is by, I think there are 2 translators who shift back and forth. This one's by Sean Whiteside. And the back of the book starts with a quote from the book and then a little summary. And the quote is this: Florentine pulled one of those faces which had once amused his classmates so much and disarmed the teachers. Maigret didn't dare ask why he had come to see him. He studied him, struggling to believe that so many years had passed. He was so used to acting the fool that his face automatically assumed comical expressions, but his face was still grayish, his eyes anxious. So what is this? A visit from a long-lost schoolmate who has fallen on hard times forces Maigret to unpick a seedy tangle of love affairs in Montmartre and to confront the tragedy of a wasted life. Okay, so this is some of the Maigret novels dig into his life. Most of them do not. I think most of them do not. I haven't done an actual numerical survey because there's hundreds of them, but most of them do not. Most of the time, it's just Maigret, the indefatigable observer of other people, who puts things together in just the way that you want a sleuth to do. Penguin is doing a couple of these every month, and the other one is Maigret at Vichy, where he and Madame Maigret go to Vichy for a vacation. But of course, since it's Maigret, he can't stop investigating crime even when he's on vacation. That was a gimmick that Simenon returned to a few times in the course of the series, where Maigret would try to take a vacation, but he can't escape his own nature. And this is the other one, Maigret's childhood friend. Great, fantastic. Talk about, actually, do I have it here? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Here's Maigret and Vichy. Look at how beautiful that is. Is this by Sean Whiteside as well? No, this is by Roz Schwartz, this translation. And these are the 2 Maigret novels for right now, and they are, the reason I have this one here is because it immediately went on my nightstand. It immediately went there for in between reading. Talk about palate cleansers. They make great palate cleansers. And then this last one, actually now that I think about it, they especially make great palate cleansers during March Mystery Madness. So I'm glad to have them all the more so. Oh no, oh my, okay, all right. Okay, some of you are going to know this series, and you'll certainly know this author. This is Alison Weir. Alison Weir, for the last few years, has been doing a series of big, fat, historical novels one for each wife of Henry VIII. A very anachronistic literary project, just in general. I'd like to think that the attention of both historical novelists and historians in the 21st century is maybe moving a little bit beyond constantly studying this incredibly important and pivotal king solely through his wives. I mean, it's picturesque and it's very dramatic, but it reduces everything. It reduces the whole subject, not just the women involved. It reduces everything. It reduces Henry to just, which wife is it now, or a nursery rhyme about who's beheaded and who survives or whatever. So I looked at this Alison Weir project with skepticism. It started with Catherine of Aragon, and she's making slow and steady progress through all of the wives, much as Henry did. And we are up to Catherine Howard, the scandalous queen, who did not look like that. but these are generous, and they're well designed. And Alison Weir is, of course, she's a historian as well as a historical novelist, and she's a reliable friend on the page. Those of you who've read her work will, I'm sure, agree with that. Whether it's fiction or nonfiction, she's a reliable friend on the page. So these books are fun. And, she's going to take her requisite authorial liberties with the subject matter, of course. I wonder what liberties she'll take with Catherine Howard. Catherine Howard is not particularly promising as the heroine of a novel. Suzanne Dunn did a book on Catherine, a novel on Catherine Howard that was fantastic, but it was mostly, Catherine in it is mostly opaque. Catherine is mostly opaque as a figure, especially as a wife of Henry VIII. You can't imagine, when you know her story, you find yourself just staring at it in disbelief and saying, what could you possibly have been thinking? What could you possibly have been thinking? Not to marry Henry, who was by this time grotesquely obese and old and stiff and obviously incapable of fathering a child. Obviously, it was complete treason. It was a quick march through Gray's Inn to your execution. To even suggest that, even drunk, even in a group of friends, one of those friends would turn you in. It was complete treason to even suggest that, but it was obvious to every single child, much less someone like Catherine Howard, who had already known man, as it were. She had to take one look at Henry and know, he's never going to father an heir on me. Now, I don't blame her for taking the position. She was a Howard. She was compelled by her family to do it. And probably she had a great deal of ambition on her own to be queen. But in the back of her reptilian mind, she had to know that her one and only reason for being there was impossible. Unless she contracted out to somebody else, and that was a death sentence. But that's bad enough. That's bad enough to look at her story and say, well, okay, but what were you thinking? But to have an affair when the whole kingdom is watching, when the Howards have more enemies than friends, when Henry himself is suspicious of everything that moves. Anyway, let's see what we find out here. This is the 5th installment. One queen left. My favorite of the queens is left. Let's see here. In the spring of 1540, Henry VIII is desperate to be rid of his queen, Anna of Cleve, which is the styling that Alison Weir uses for Anne of Cleves, and it's also the styling that Hilary Mantel uses in her latest, the third book in her Cromwell series. It is during this time that he first sets eyes on the enchanting Catherine Howard, young and exceedingly beautiful. Although the king is now an ailing 49-year-old measuring 54 inches around his waist, his amorous gaze lights upon the pretty teenager. Seated near him intentionally by her ambitious Catholic family, Catherine readily succumbs to the courtship. Well, okay, she doesn't succumb to the courtship. I mean, she was never in the slightest attracted to Henry, nor was the Bassett girl. There was a young woman right at the same time. I mean, it was neck and neck, no pun intended, to see whether, I forget her first name, Mary or something like that, from the Bassett family. She was always around Henry at this time too. And she was just as lovely as Catherine Howard. She came from a good family, not as prominent as the Howards, but it could easily have been her instead of Catherine Howard if she turned the right phrase at the right time, or been there at the right moment when the pain in Henry's leg maybe wasn't bothering him quite so much. If it had been a Tuesday other than a Wednesday, in other words, it might have been whatever her name, I forget her first name. But anyway, let's see here. Henry is besotted with his bride. He tells the world she is a rose without a thorn, and extols her beauty and her virtue. Catherine delights in the pleasures of being queen and the power she has to do good to others. What? All right. Well, there we know Alison Weir's angle then. There we know the aforementioned authorial liberties. Catherine Howard never thought about doing good for others ever once in her entire misbegotten, brainless life. But here she's going to be made to be some sort of do-gooder, quite literally. Oh my. All right, well, that's a long sell, but I'll watch. I'll absolutely watch. She comes to love the ailing, obese king and tolerate his nightly attentions. If she can bear him a son, her triumph will be complete. But Catherine has a past which Henry knows nothing about, and which comes back increasingly to haunt her, even as she courts danger yet again. Because Henry's men went all over this with Thomas Howard, the Duke of Norfolk, and with Catherine Howard and all the women in the family. Henry's agents went all over it. He was, by this point, ravingly paranoid about whether or not a prospective wife of his had already had lovers. He said that the reason why he was, and he never used, of course, didn't know the word paranoid, but the reason why he was extra concerned about that was because he wanted to guarantee the legitimacy of offspring. But I think deep down inside, even he knew it just wasn't going to happen. It just wasn't going to happen. Certainly after the first of those nightly attentions, Catherine Howard had to know. No, the real reason was because he had been burned by that so many times. It made him feel foolish. It made him the laughingstock of Europe. So it was a question that was put to Catherine Howard and to her family and keepers in the strictest possible terms. Has there ever been anyone, or is she pure? And they lied. Just plain lied. They just assumed that they would get away with it. They did not. And neither did she. Catherine Howard was Henry VIII's youngest wife, and Alison Weir brings her story to life with great skill and care. Okay, well, I don't know what... this is an advanced copy, so I don't know what the blurb situation is going to be. I reviewed one of these. I reviewed, I think, two of them. I think I reviewed the Anne Boleyn volume, and I know that I reviewed the Catherine of Aragon volume for the Christian Science Monitor. So I doubt I would do this one again for them. I think I reviewed one of these for the Historical Novel Review as well. I'm all over the place with these things. Okay, yeah. Catherine of Aragon, the True Queen, I reviewed for the Christian Science Monitor. And I think I reviewed the Jane Seymour volume as well, or maybe it was Anne of Cleve. Well, I'll find out. I'll find out, and if and list any pertinent reviews in the show notes so that you can read up if you want to. So there you go. That is our mail for today. So we have a historical novel, a big, ambitious historical novel about Catherine Howard, the fifth wife of Henry VIII. Then we have Valentine, Elizabeth Wetmore's fiction debut. We have 100 Sons, Karen Tanabe's historical novel. We have The Butterfly Effect by Edward Melillo, about the surprisingly extensive interconnection between humans and insects. Not just plagues. And that's the usual connection that historians draw, is that insects have accounted for more dead humans than any human war has ever done. But this author clearly wants to say that it's been a lot more than that. It's been a lot of other stuff than that, and continues today. Then Dead West by Matt Goldman. Sounds like L.A. Noir. Always in the mood for that. And Maigret's Childhood Friend. The latest, one of the two latest of Penguin's ongoing, very nice shelf of Maigret retranslations. That the Maigret novels are so good. They're so good. I don't care if it's notorious that how little time Simenon needed to write one of them. He had a talent. I don't begrudge writing speed to anybody. How could I, of all people, do that? I think back to Ray Bradbury or Alexander Dumas. There's nothing wrong with an author writing something really fast. If they've got the cogs in the right place in their head, then I don't begrudge them writing a Maigret novel in the course of one train trip. So you get on the train with a bunch of paper or a typewriter, and you get off, at the French Riviera with a novel that you will just send to your author. That I don't begrudge that at all. They're so good. So there you go. That is our mail for today. We'll see if there's more mail. I don't know if there will be, but if it's significant, then I will pop down in front of the camera and show it to you. So I'm gonna sign off for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.